Hey everyone, this is Rich. I'm joined here today with a colleague and friend, Dr. Suzanne Fox, Sherry Toby, and Rob Lee. And I'm very proud to have our guest, Dr. Milton Mills. I first
Yes.
became aware of him in the film What the Health,
Yep.
and I do appreciate all the speaking you've been doing about dairy because I don't think some people in our audience realize the real dangers of dairy that exist.
Sure.
So, Dr. Mills, if you could just give us a brief introduction, just a brief background before we begin our discussion about dairy.
You mean on me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh gosh, what do I want to say? Just currently, I am an internal medicine and critical care trained physician, and I live and work in the Washington, D.C. metro area. But I'm originally from California. I grew up in the San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area, did my undergraduate and medical school in that area, and then moved out to the Washington, D.C. area to complete my residency training, and then have been living and working in this area since that time. But I frequently go back to California because my parents are still living there, and I am fortunate that they are both still alive. They both turned 90 years old last.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have um, been plant-based since 1974. In fact, in September.
That's impressive.
Yeah, this will be my 50th year being plant-based. That just kind of occurred to me earlier this year. I realized that this coming September it would be 50
Yeah,
years.
that's a big deal too.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. So and the first part I was vegetarian, although I was mostly vegan because I never drank milk and rarely because I'm so lactose intolerant, and rarely ate in the parlance of vegetarians visible eggs. They were mostly in prepared products, but then transitioned to veganism around 2000. But the reason that I decided to go to medical school was after eliminating meat from my diet. It made such a tremendous improvement in my general health and the way I felt, and just the way my thinking improved and so forth, that it was very clear to me that this was, in fact, the best diet for human beings. And I decided that I wanted to really, really gain the most detailed and sophisticated understanding of human health and physiology I could have, so that I could help people really understand why it was so important for human beings to adhere to a plant-based diet to avoid the diseases that are common in our society, and to optimize their health. And so that's the entire reason I decided to go into medicine.
Yeah, I applaud you for that because too many doctors are in it just to make money and give pills, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So I did want to focus on dairy today because there's a lot of issues with it. I have one friend who did reverse her asthma by giving up dairy, and I know that it can improve a lot of conditions. So first of all, what is it about dairy that makes it so bad to humans?
Hi, Milton. It's nice to see you. So, some of us are aware of the detrimental health effects of dairy products on the body, such as milk, eggs, cheese, yogurt, and so on. But maybe you can just elaborate a little bit more on why they're harmful to us and to our body.
um, my entire approach to trying to help people understand why certain foods are either good or not good for us is to try and again get people to step back and take more of a big picture approach to and really understand what a particular type of food or in this case product is designed to do, and then understand how it interacts with our physiology. So, for instance, I'm working in an outpatient clinic right now, and I always end up talking to patients about dairy, because especially during this time of year, because people are coming in with colds, bronchitis, allergies, and like, oh, I'm clogged up, my sinuses are acting up, I need Flonase, I need all this. And one of the first questions I ask them, are you still consuming dairy products? And frequently they are. And so then I start by asking them, what is milk? And so we talk about the fact that milks are fluids produced by mammalian mothers for their particular infant. Okay, everybody gets that. What is a mother's milk designed to do? Well, it has some very specific purposes. One, provides the infant energy in a compact, consumable form that the baby can imbibe and grow. But then it has a really important and we'll come back to that too, because it's actually species specific energy formulations. But then the next job that it's designed to do is it's designed to make that infant grow again in a species specific fashion, because different mammals grow at different rates. And as a result, the proteins that are in different mammalian milks are they're in differing amounts, because people, again, certainly in America and Western countries in general, are completely gaslit and brainwashed about how important protein is and what its purposes are. And proteins, in fact, are building blocks. Proteins are not energy substrates. Proteins are analogous to the bricks and mortar and plastic and pipes that one would use to build a home or building. They're not the propane or electricity or fuel oil or energy that you would use to power that building once it's up. They're the stuff that you use to actually put the building together. And just as if you decided that you were going to a vacant lot and build a building, and you started having trucks deliver building materials to you as you're building the building, once that building is built, you're not going to have fleets of trucks delivering these materials at the same rate, because what's going to happen? You're going to end up with a big pile of rubble, out on the lawn, right?
That's a very good point.
A big pile of rubble biologically is a tumor. And that is why excess protein has been shown to promote tumors.
Wow.
And yeah. I mean, that's an analogy people get immediately.
Wow.
That when you continue to force these building materials on our bodies when they can't use it, you just get tumor development, and they can be benign tumors like lipomas and cysts and moles and all the other crap, or they unfortunately are often cancerous tumors. And we know that studies show that people that eat excess animal protein have 400% more cancers than people who eat animal protein. So it's very clear, that relationship. But then the mother's milk has another super important job, and that is the baby in utero is not using its lungs, right? It's the mother's breathing for it.
Yep.
And the baby's immune system is not working because, again, the mom is protecting that baby. So her milk has to jumpstart that baby's immune system. And it does it in two ways. It gives it passive immunity by passing on some antibodies to the baby, but it also has compounds in it that start revving up that baby's immune system. And so what is the primary way our respiratory tree and gastrointestinal tract protects itself from dirt, pathogens, and things in the environment? Mucus. It traps the dirt and the bacteria and stuff in the mucus lining the respiratory tree. The cilia beat it up so that we can either spit it out or swallow it. Well, if we're already producing enough mucus, but we ingest something that tells our body to produce more mucus, what happens? We get clogged up.
Yeah.
That's true.
Again, the light bulb goes off immediately. And people are like, oh, I get it now.
It's an immune
Yeah.
response.
It's an immune
It is.
response. We're
Wow.
overstimulating our immune system. And,
Wow.
and those pro-inflammatory compounds also cause the bronchospasm that in people who are really susceptible that we see in asthmatics, and it can cause inflammatory reactions in people who are sensitive to the cow's milk proteins in the GI tract, and so on. And so that, I mean, there are very clear reasons why these foreign milk proteins and antigens cause the abnormal problems that we see when we ingest milk from a species we have no business consuming.
Right.
Wow.
Dairy is the most abnormal compounds that we ingest because there is no logical reason why we should be consuming the milk of another species. That is bizarre beyond reason. And the fact that we have normalized it, you know, through cultural habit doesn't make it any less bizarre. You know, if we decided as a culture that, you know, we were going to try to have, you know, sex with snakes and made it a habitual practice, that doesn't make it normal.
No.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, and the fact that, you know, a certain segment of you know, Northern European cultures adopted this practice as a way of making it through winter months, and then, you know, sort of pass that practice around the world, again, doesn't make it normal. And while it may have been a useful practice, you know, hundreds of years ago, again, when food was less accessible and people, you know, had to do what they needed to do to make it through lean months, it is distinctly counterproductive now because it is creating many more problems than it's solving. And it's something that we need to stop immediately. The other thing that I do for the men is, and gosh, I wish I could do it here, is I put up a picture of testosterone and estrogen. And the testosterone and estrogen are almost identical chemically, except for a couple of points on this 5-ring compound that form those two hormones. And I asked the guys, they're all married. I'm like, when you married your wife, was she producing milk in her breast? And they're like, well, no, of course not. I'm like, when did she start producing the milk? Well, when she got pregnant and got ready to deliver our baby. Like, it's the same thing with the cows. They don't produce milk unless they're pregnant. But that means there's tons of estrogen in their milk. And when we as men ingest milk that has estrogen in it, our bodies essentially chemically change that estrogen into testosterone. But what that means is it will make our prostate cells enlarge. And if there are cancer cells in it, it makes those cancer cells grow. And that is why dairy is one of the leading risk factors for prostate cancer.
Wow, that's horrible.
It is. And it has also been shown to increase breast cancer risk in women in a dose-dependent fashion. The more milk a woman drinks, the higher her risk for breast cancer. I mean, you know, again, I go through these sort of didactic steps so that people get it, so that they see that, you know, we're not just making this up. This is not, you know, some guy sitting in his basement making stuff up on YouTube. I mean, this is science. And there are clear, logical, scientific reasons why these things are true. And, you know, somebody may not want them to be true, but you know, I don't want to believe that one of these days I'm not going to be alive, but that's not going to make me live forever. Science is science, facts are facts. And
exactly.
I think Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, you know, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but we are not entitled to our own facts. You know, facts are facts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Suzanne, you were going to alternate between questions, but Suzanne, I think you probably have a question.
Well, I just wanted to say that I had made a meme, like, you know, one of those little memes that said, hey kids, drink your milk so you can grow up to have a nice big prostate just like grandpa.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's just, it is so, again, unnatural and unhealthy. And then, you know, again, gosh, can I do a screen share?
Sure.
Okay. So let me,
if you have it ready to go, I can change permission.
Let me, I think I can find it pretty quickly, Richard. Hold on one.
It'll probably take me the same amount of time to find where the share is.
All right.
Suzanne, if you could look at the same time where share is, maybe I can...
Okay, here. Yeah, this
Oh,
is...
the share?
Yeah.
Do I do that on mine?
Well, no, I just mean I'm looking for it. I don't see it on mine.
Let me see here. The share. It's like got a little, it's like in the middle.
Oh, I see it.
So let's see. Now you guys...
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now it says host has disabled participant screen sharing. So you got to make me
I just turned it on.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And that's what I want to share.
There we go.
Yeah.
There
Perfect.
you go.
All right.
Oh, I like that. That's very nice.
Yeah. I just play on this Mac. That's right. There you go.
Now looking at this, Dr. Mills, I just saw that how much you know, solids is in dogs versus and fat and everything.
Oh, exactly.
How come do you think that it became cows that were the main source of milk?
Well, because just imagine trying to milk a leopard or or a lion,
True.
or it's because there's, I mean, I think clearly one, they are they produce a lot more milk. They are much more docile and much more manageable. And the period during which they produce milk is much longer than
I see.
so that it would be much easier to you know, again, get a lot more milk out of them than and certainly I just don't think that it would be at all practical to try and milk any of these carnivorous species. I mean, you'd end up being killed. But one of the things that you immediately notice is that there are huge differences between the protein content of the carnivores versus the two herbivores at the bottom. The carnivores have much higher protein amounts, and that's because when you look at the carnivore infants versus the size of human and cow infants, plant eater babies are born at a much more mature state than carnivore babies. Carnivores have their babies at much much shorter periods of gestation, and so they essentially complete their development outside the womb. So they need a lot more nutritional support. So there's a lot more fat, a lot more protein, and because they're growing at a much faster rate. And so I often tell people, if you had a pet dog and a woman and her dog delivered at the same time, but sadly the female dog passed away, and the woman who decided that she would pump her breast and try and keep the puppies alive by sharing her breast milk with the puppies, those puppies would die. And the reason is because when you look at the percentage of protein in human milk and compare it with the percentage of protein in dog milk up top, there's not nearly enough protein in the human milk for the puppies.
Yeah.
And so the puppies would just, they would expire. And there's just not enough to keep them alive. And actually, interestingly, that would also be true of a baby calf, although there's no way a woman could produce enough volume to keep a calf alive. But then even the calf is growing so much faster than a human baby that it needs a lot more protein. But the really I think telling thing about the difference between cow's milk and human milk is that even though, so a baby calf at birth is between 60 to 80 pounds, whereas, as we know, a human baby is about 6 to 9 pounds on average. When they get bigger than that, it's really a little too big. But you can see that human breast milk has like 1.5 times as much sugar as cow's milk. And the reason is because proportionately, a human baby's brain is the largest brain of any mammalian species, and the brain uses sugar exclusively for its metabolism. And so even when parents, if they unfortunately feed their child cow's milk, they're relatively starving their baby's brain in terms of the amount of sugar it needs for its metabolism. It's just not getting enough energy. And then the last point I like to make is that even though the percentage of fat in human milk and cow's milk is appears to be identical, it is completely different types of fat. Because when you look at human breast milk, it has a thin, translucent quality, and the reason is that the fat in human breast milk is largely unsaturated, whereas the fat in cow's milk is saturated fat, which means it will become solid at room temperature, which is why you can churn cow's milk and make butter, or turn it into ice cream, and you can churn human breast milk all day long. You will not get butter out of it. Yeah. So yeah, it's chemically very different. Also, and it actually gets even more sophisticated than that, because human breast milk has a lot of what are called medium chain oligosaccharides in them that are designed to feed and promote the development of the baby's microbiome. And cow's milk doesn't have those compounds in them. And so again, it retards development of a healthy microbiome in human babies. And then lastly, one of the really interesting areas that are just starting to be explored is people have discovered that mammalian milks are filled with messenger RNA fragments. And people are just trying to figure out exactly what these mRNA fragments are doing. We can infer that they are very likely programming the infant's physic genes in ways that, again, tell it, their genes how to start teaching the animal to be a cow or a bear or a wolf or a leopard or whatever. But again, they're still exploring that. But it raises some very disturbing questions about what those mRNA fragments are doing in us when we ingest bovine milk. And it could be part of the reason that people who drink a lot of cow's milk end up with physiology that tends to promote metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, excess weight gain, and other long-term chronic problems. And then the last thing I want to mention is that Dr. Jacqueline Bussey from I think UCSF San Francisco showed that women who drink, well, number one, she showed that the proteins in cow's milk are 7 times more growth stimulatory than the proteins in human milk. And that's because, again, as we said, proteins are building blocks.
Yes.
Human beings are the slowest growing mammals on Earth. I mean, no other mammal takes 18 years to reach adulthood. And that's why we have the lowest protein content in our milk of any mammal. And even those proteins don't promote rapid growth. Whereas a baby calf born at 60 pounds by its 3rd birthday is about 1,200 pounds in weight, adult weight. So it's growing much, much faster. So not only is there more protein, but those proteins are more growth promoting. Well, it again turns out that women who drink cow's milk during pregnancy have bigger babies. They have larger, heavier babies. And people will say, well, what's wrong with that? Bigger is better. No, it's not. Because those women then end up having much more trauma to their birth canal. And they end up with a higher incidence of pelvic floor damage, vaginal rectal fistulas, urinary incontinence, dyspareunia, which is painful sexual intercourse, and other gynecological issues throughout the rest of their lives because of the trauma that they've experienced delivering these abnormally large babies that have been promoted by ingesting this cow's milk, which makes these babies grow at a abnormally fast rate. So it's not a good thing. So we end up creating a lot of unnecessary health problems for ourselves because we're eating foods, or excuse me, I shouldn't even call it foods. We're eating things that we should not be ingesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it's absolutely true.
Yeah, without question. So I'll stop this share for the time being.
Okay, and I do have another question.
Sure.
This leads into probably lactose, and I'd like to talk about, because I've heard your discussion about how dairy is racist, and I truly believe that after you explained it. It makes a lot of sense. And if you could share with our audience.
Sure. So I kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, Richard, when I mentioned that the practice of using dairy was developed primarily by Northern European cultures. So, and this is something else that I think is just important to point out, that according to evolutionary theory, the human species, modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, are believed to be about 100,000 years old. That you can trace the appearance of fully modern human beings back 100,000 years. However, the practice of dairying, that is using the milk of cows and goats and sheep, is only about 5,000 years old. Okay.
Wow.
So right there, the question it begs the question of, if dairy was necessary for human survival, how the heck did we survive as a species for
Yeah.
96,000 years without this stuff? So clearly it's not necessary for either our survival or our health, number one. But number two, it was a practice, again, that originated in Northern European cultures, where they learned to take milk from these animals and develop products that could be stored through winter months and used for calories to get them through lean times when plant foods weren't available. And again, that made sense back then because, you know, survival as a species is all about passing your genes on and making sure that those genes make it to the next generation. I get that. We all do. And then that practice was then exported to different areas around the world as these cultures spread around the world. Well, again, what is fascinating is that the vast majority of human beings around the world stop making the gene that makes the enzyme that allows us to absorb the sugar that's in milk after we're weaned. And that's true of all mammals, actually. So something like 65 to 70% of humans around the earth are become unable to digest milk sugar post weaning. And the reason is milk sugar is actually comprised of, lactose is what's called a disaccharide, meaning it's two different sugar molecules that are joined together into a disaccharide. And in order to be absorbed through the intestine, that disaccharide has to be split into two monosaccharides, into the two individual sugars, which can then be absorbed. If they aren't split, if they stay attached, they can't be absorbed in the small intestine, and they will pass all the way through to the large intestine, and that's where the havoc starts. Because disaccharides have a lot of what's called oncotic pressure. They pull fluid towards them, and that will then cause people to start experiencing diarrhea. But the other problem is that the bacteria in the large intestine have no problem digesting the lactose. They start breaking it down, which creates a lot of gas, a lot of bloating, leads to cramping, and all sorts of other issues. And most people are familiar with the oncotic pressure of disaccharide sugars because they've made strawberry shortcake. And table sugar, or sucrose, is a disaccharide. It is a glucose and fructose molecule joined together, but we all make the sucrase enzyme all our lives, which splits that molecule, and we absorb it with no problem. But when we take the table sugar and we put it on top of strawberries, it pulls a fluid out of the strawberries and makes this nice syrupy strawberry syrup, because it'll pull that fluid right towards it. Well, that's what is happening in our large intestines when that lactose gets down. So but getting back to this issue of lactose intolerance, so what we see is that 30% of the Caucasian, around 30% of the Caucasian people in the United States are lactose intolerant, but a much larger percentage of people of color are lactose intolerant. So when it comes to Asian Americans, it's around 90 to 95%. With Native Americans, it's upwards of 74+%. With African Americans, it's again 73 up to, it can be as high as 90%, depending on their genetic penetrance of European genes. And with Hispanic Americans, again, depending on how much mixing with European genes it can be 53 to, again, a high of 75% or more. So But again, the general point is that the vast majority of Americans of color are bound to be lactose intolerant, meaning that if they ingest lactose containing foods, they're going to get sick.
Yeah.
And so for the government to insist that our children ingest dairy milk, knowing full well that they are almost certainly going to not be able to digest this food and it's going to make them ill, is flat out racist, especially when there's no health benefit. There's absolutely no need for dairy in our diet. It confers no advantages. The people say, well, what about the calcium? What about the calcium? I ask people, is there calcium in cow's milk? Yeah. Do cows drink milk? No, they don't. So clearly you don't need milk for calcium. And in fact, the Harvard Nurses Health Study showed that the women who drank the most milk had the highest risk of hip fracture.
Yeah.
If you look worldwide, the countries that consume the most dairy products have the highest rates of osteoporosis and bone fractures. Dairy calcium has never been shown to be protective for preventing osteoporosis or preventing bone fractures. It isn't. It actually is associated with a higher risk of fracture. So the idea that dairy consumption is good for bone health is marketing. It is not science. And in fact, there is a dairy spokesperson who is on record as saying that the reason they want to preserve the distribution of dairy in the school lunch program has nothing to do with health and nutrition. It is because that is the major choke point for school children. And it is where school children learn and are taught how to eat.
Yeah.
And that is where children are taught to eat and consume the typical American diet. I mean, it was almost sinister when you think about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is nothing about nutrition. This is brainwashing.
It is.
We want to keep indoctrinating these kids on how to ingest crap that they will then be, inclined to eat for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, this way they're addicted to it early.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, Richard. I mean, one of my colleagues, Dr. Mopuri, said, at graduation, they should be given their diploma and some insulin and a Zocor tablet, a statin tablet, because they're going to need it. It's horrible. It is really, really awful because we are setting them up for a lifetime of disease and health problems. And it's cruel.
It is mean.
It really is.
It's cruelty.
Yes, for no benefit.
Yeah.
No benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, completely unnecessary, unnatural products for no health benefit whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
I mean, whole cow's milk is probably one of the highest sources of saturated and total fat in the American diet. The proteins we've seen have been shown to promote cancer, heart disease, other problems. There's literally no reason, unless your choice is starvation versus dairy. Okay,
right.
Yeah, in that extreme example, maybe. But when you have other choices, like rice cakes versus dairy,
exactly. Yeah,
it's all about the rice cakes. I mean, this stuff should be avoided at all costs. It is just we have no more need for cow's milk than we do for ferret milk.
Yeah.
I know when I tell my patients, I always say, when you're trying to go plant-based, the first things to kick out are the dairy and the eggs.
Yes.
Those are the first things to kick out.
Absolutely.
Let's worry about the meat as soon as you get rid of those two, because those are the most toxic. Those are the two things that are going to kill you the fastest and are going to cause problems. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's as I said, most unnatural things that we consume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So-
nature absolutely never intended for us to be down there sucking on the teats of a cow.
Oh,
Never.
I know. I know. It's crazy when you think about it.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, and if we could somehow cause Mother Nature to become a person, she would go, "What is wrong with you people?"
I know, right?
It's like, what are you doing?
I know.
I always wonder if we could take all the cows to the grocery store and show them the mounds of cheese and ice
Oh
cream
my
and all
God, they
that.
would go, "What the hell?"
I know.
They'd just be horrified. Is this what you're
Horrified.
kidnapping my children for?
Yes.
I know. I know.
Oh yeah, and that cruel. Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the cruelty involved is just
Unreal.
Oh, it's awful sad.
it
Yeah.
is
Very sad.
heartbreaking.
It is.
Um,
It is.
Suzanne, did you know Sherry Kolb, the professor from Cornell? She used to teach a class. Well, she would teach a class on animal rights. She used to she passed away from breast cancer, sadly,
I'm sorry.
a couple of years ago. But I attended one of her courses, and she told a story that I have just never, ever, ever forgot because it just made such an impact on me. And she had a friend who was a veterinarian who had been called to a dairy farm by a dairy farmer because one of his cows had given birth and but was not producing milk. And the way things worked was the cow was pregnant and they would release the cows in the morning to go and graze in the pasture. And then when they would come in the evening, that's when they were milked. And so they released this particular cow one morning, and she came back and she brought her calf with her.
Oh.
And they took the calf.
Yeah.
But as they let her out day after day, when she came back in, she still had no milk. And so the dairy farmer was like, something must be wrong. She must be ill, or maybe she's got a mastitis. So that's why he called the veterinarian in to examine her. And the veterinarian did full workup, and she's like, physiologically, she's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She has no infection. I don't have a reason as to why she's not producing milk. She said, so let me observe her to see if there's some other reason why she's not producing milk. And so she did. And what she found was she followed her out to the pasture, and this cow had apparently delivered twins, and she had hidden.
Oh.
And so she was going out every day to nurse the one she had hidden.
Oh,
That's
sad.
awful.
That is, Richard, that is more than it still just takes my breath away to think
Yeah.
about what that says about that cow, because she had previously delivered and had taken the baby, and so she knew what was coming. And I realized that this mother had done everything she could
Yes.
to hold on to one of her babies. I mean, first of all, she had to make an almost impossible choice to give up one of the babies.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can imagine having to make that choice, you have two children and you have to choose one to sacrifice, to just try and keep one. And if you think about the level of planning that took for this
Yeah,
animal,
you're right.
Yeah.
that she had to understand what's in the mind of these people to plan for it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And despite all of that, I'm telling you, it still makes me want to cry
I
because
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I just said to myself right then and right there that I couldn't fix that, but I was going to make sure that people knew.
Yeah. Exactly.
And knew that she tried, and that we didn't let her win, but that people would know.
Yeah.
That she had a mind, and
Exactly.
that she had a heart, and that
Yeah.
and that she tried.
He did
Yeah,
try.
yeah.
I'm sure they took the calf. I'm sure.
Oh
they
yeah,
did.
yeah. The Sherry said that her friend begged the owner of the farm to let her keep the calf. And he said, no, I can't. I'm not running a yeah, I'm running a business and
Like a nursery here. Yeah.
yeah, and yes, he took her other calf. And
Yeah. Heartbreaking.
It
Heartbreaking.
is.
I mean,
It is.
in every way imaginable. It's just, I mean, that story devastated me and still does.
Yeah, it does. It's a devastating story. It's absolutely, I mean, all of us are vegan for so many reasons, you know, all of us
That
are.
just, I mean,
And the animals.
war dropped out of my heart.
Yeah.
First of all, I could not imagine having to give up, make a choice between two children.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, and
And she
then
knew that too.
we
Yeah.
stole the other one.
Well, she's like, lucky accident. This one's out here and this one's okay. That one's gone. I've still got the one. You know, animals are so present. They're in the moment right
Right.
now. So
True.
she's like, okay, I'm going to concentrate my efforts and energy and I'm
Right.
going to make this happen. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, and then what was amazing was there was another gentleman who worked at a sanctuary, and he in the class, and he said, "Wait a minute," he said, "I don't want you guys to think that this was kind of a one-time thing." He said, because we had the same experience at our sanctuary. We had a pregnant cow. She went out, she delivered, she brought one calf back, and for a couple days, she only had the one calf. But when she realized we weren't going to take him, she brought her second calf in.
Oh,
Oh,
just sad.
I just,
It's heartbreaking.
well, at least that one had a happy ending. But
yes.
again, it shows you that these are thinking beings,
Yeah.
you know, and that they
Cruelty.
understand, and they formulate plans, and they, you know, that they love their babies.
Yeah.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Human beings are the only
But
ones capable of loving
yeah.
your children.
I will tell you that until I heard that story, I did not think that animals were capable of that type of subterfuge and
Yeah.
that type of forethought and planning. And it just, I have such newfound and profound respect for
Yeah, for sure.
and just disgust at our behaviors as a species.
It's bad. It's very bad. And it's so casual. I mean, if every product in the grocery store is full of dairy, every single one of the processed foods that you buy, you know, it says contains milk, contains milk,
Or
contains
milk solids, yes.
Yes.
Oh, that term, milk solids. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
What is it? I wonder what it is. What is it? Is it just like
exactly? What is that? I'm like,
they
it's like
scrape out the container
I
or something?
had to change tortilla chips because milk solids. What is that? And why is it there?
Exactly.
That and gelatin. I'm
Yeah.
like,
I heard they have a huge cheese wheel the size of the Pentagon in the reserve, the cheese reserve.
yeah, I was so infuriated when I realized that Planters, for some reason, puts gelatin on their dry roasted peanuts.
What?
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yes. I'm like, this is freaking gratuitous.
Mhm.
You know, this is just like when when you see people walking along the street and there's a puddle and you just drive over to wet them up. I'm like, why would you do this? Why would you ruin perfectly good peanuts?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I guess they put it in the coating but they don't need to because there are other
No, of course not.
varieties that don't. I'm like, why did you do this?
That's
Reminds me of
crazy.
the story when I bought B12. This was a number of years ago when I was vegan. And I looked at the bottle and it had said contains dairy. Why?
Are you serious?
It
I
did,
thought you
yeah.
were going to say the gelatin caps, but dairy.
Dairy.
Oh, Lord.
In the B12.
Why? You know?
B12. Again, gratuitous. I'm like, you guys are doing this just to stick it to us.
Exactly.
Right. I'm like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I'm just like,
I know.
doing it to be mean.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're trying to find ways to get rid of, because I think if I'm right, I think the government is obligated to buy every bit of dairy that's produced, no matter how much there is.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of
finding
the
ways to
farm
get
bill
rid of
and
this,
that. Yeah.
nobody wants it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lady on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram named Connie Spence, and she goes into huge, all about the lobbying and all of the stuff about that, and how huge amounts of dairy are just, put into everything. And
Oh yeah,
and
that's why there's cheese and everything. Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
companies
could put it in the nuclear weapons, and then that safe from everything.
Exactly. Get rid of it. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they just, go ahead and just keep putting into everything, even though it's completely unnecessary and extremely harmful to everybody,
Yeah, I know. And it's like, at this point, when I see these commercials and they got, the triple stacked pizza on the cheese and the crust and under, I'm like, pretty soon they're going to just start spraying it on the patrons as they come in the door, It's
Exactly. So you get to that point.
I'm like, good God, people, where else are you going to put it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you get some dairy and you get some
Yeah,
dairy.
right. Exactly. Yeah, right. I like Oprah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody gets some dairy.
Yeah.
Right.
The dairy fairy.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Horrible.
And I'd like to kind of get a positive feel toward the end of this. Do you think there's any positive changes that do you think maybe people will eventually move away from dairy or?
First of all, Richard, so yes, I mean, I don't know, one of my favorite scenes in the movie Roman Holiday was after Audrey Hepburn reassumes her role as the princess, and she's being interviewed, and William or Gregory Peck asks her, so what was your favorite part of your visit? And she starts thinking, and she just says Rome. It was Rome. And so my answer is yes. Absolutely, yes. And the reason I say that is one of the amazing experiences I've had. I've been working in this military clinic since July. And I have been, talking with all my patients about changing their diet, even though I've been getting a lot of pushback and resistance from the powers that be. And of course, as I was saying when we started, I was telling you about how I talked to them about the impact of dairy on their respiratory tree, sinuses, and raising prostate cancer risk. And I'm telling you, my patients come back and they're like, Doc, I'm on almond milk now. I'm doing soy milk. I've eliminated the dairy cheese. So yes, they're changing.
Hear that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing it in my clinic. I'm seeing people making these changes and telling me that their family members are doing it. So yes, and that has been thrilling to see, because once people understand, and the other thing that is so encouraging is that they're like, why didn't somebody else tell me about this? Why aren't we being told this information? So people really want to know this information, and that when they understand it, they go home and they share it with their family and with their friends. So yes, there's no question that these changes are coming, and as I told you, this September is going to be my 50th anniversary. And man, when I was a teenager, I was in high school, and when I changed my diet, there was nothing in the supermarket.
No, I know back then, I can imagine. Yeah.
There was no restaurants. Word vegan, if it had been invented, nobody knew it. And so the world has just changed dramatically. So yes, it's changing. It never changes as fast as we want, but it will continue to change, and we just have to get the word out there, because people want to know. And when they learn, they will share it with their friends. So yes, we have every reason to be hopeful, and I'm incredibly encouraged by what I've seen just in in my clinic and what I've been able to do and talking with my patients, it's really, really thrilling and encouraging. So yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
have to say that the movie you were in, What the Health, that really did change my life in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering if you think that movie had an impact on a lot of people, because I know it did for me.
Actually, again, yes, because one of the things that I have been doing with my clinic is they only assign us 20 minutes per patient, right? Which I'm in constant conflict with the powers that be
I'm
because
sure, yeah.
I take more than 20 minutes and
Yeah.
they're like, well, Dr. Mills, you're behind. And I'm like, my responsibility is to the patient in front of me, not to some schedule that you guys made. And,
Yeah.
but that being said, I obviously don't have all the time I would like to do patient education. So what I tell my patients is that, all right, I'm going to assign you homework. And the standard homework is forks over knives, what the health, depending, eating you alive or game changers. And then I usually include a couple of my lectures and I tell them, I want you to take notes. And when you come back to clinic, there's going to be a quiz and we're going to go over things. And then we'll, talk about how to implement these changes in your life. So yes, they're wonderful online tools to do a lot of the education I don't have time to do with the patients. And they've been incredibly helpful in that way. So yeah, it makes a huge difference and a huge impact. And I'm very grateful that they're out there for patients to be able to access and utilize them.
Yeah, that's awesome. We really need more doctors like you out there.
So yeah, and
honestly,
yeah, I want to find more online cooking demos for people.
oh, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, to learn how to cook because when people say I don't like tofu, I tell them you just don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's really, people say, well, tofu is bland. Well, so is flour.
Yeah.
You can turn it into a cake. You can turn it into bread. It's like it's all about what you do with it. I mean, people are bland until they like get a personality.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to work with things.
Exactly.
And that's how we have to change our thinking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So good to hear.
Hi, Milton. I'm so glad you're here today. And I have a question for you. So I noticed that when I stopped eating dairy, that within a short period of time that my blackheads actually cleared up. And so I was wondering, is there a connection between eating dairy and skin problems?
Absolutely. Because again, dairy is very pro-inflammatory because again, remember, there are compounds in it that rev up immune cells and stimulate immune cells to start expressing all of these pro-inflammatory compounds because it's trying to tell the baby's immune system, all right, become vigilant, start looking for potential pathogens and so forth. But if you already have an active immune system, it's like making your immune system go out and smoke meth. Just start, becoming overactive and your sebaceous cells start producing all this excess oil, and then the oil gets clogged up with bacteria, and so and it's like when you come off of it, all of that calms down, it goes away, and that is very common that especially in teenagers, that once they come off of dairy, their acne will resolve. And there's actually several good papers, research papers that have looked at the relationship between dairy consumption and acne and have shown a direct relationship with elimination of dairy and resolution of acne symptoms.
Wow. So good to know.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I know my buddy Jeff Palmer will know exactly where those papers are.
Oh, he would. Yeah, he
Yeah,
would. Yeah. And Suzanne, did you have any questions?
I do not, except just to say that I am so, so grateful for you, Dr. Mills. I have watched your video about are humans supposed to consume animals over and
Oh, I
over.
did
I
too.
recommend it. I've taken clips of it. I've popped it all over the internet. And I
Right.
hope make you internet famous as a result. And I'm just so, so, so grateful for you and everything you do.
I
Thank
am
you.
as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I consider you a good friend because we both think alike too politically with what's
Yes.
going on out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I don't want to turn into politics, but definitely you and I have the same mind.
I know,
what's
man.
going on.
It's like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
We just have to keep fighting and hope people come to their senses. And
Yes.
and to that whole horror with that the South Dakota governor, to me, that encapsulates that whole MAGA crowd completely. With her killing her dog, and it's just, I mean, that's MAGA in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I'm like, this, character is consistent, and this is who these people are. You shot a dog because it's untrainable. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
terrible.
I know.
Yeah, it's just
That's what the SPCA is for. If you give it up, SPCA.
and it was a
Somebody
puppy.
will handle
It was a puppy.
At 14
It's
months
disgusting.
old, I think. Yeah.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
It-
As a person who owns 9 dogs, I find that reprehensible. Absolutely.
Again, yeah. Let's not even waste any more
Yeah.
neural energy on that. It's just
And no more airspace.
that's who these people are. Yeah.
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 All right. Well,
Yeah.
listen.
I just want
It's
to say
been
that
fun,
I
guys.
do appreciate you, and
Thank
Okay.
you.
yeah, keep doing what you're doing too.
Will do. All right. It's great
Okay.
having being doing the podcast. So I'll talk to you guys later. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Yeah.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.